Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. In today's video on Good Old Double Bits Workshop, we'll be working on a Valentine's Day laser engraving. And I'm going to be making the piece a little bit different and hopefully you guys enjoy it. We're going to be playing around with the good old Robo CNC by good old Comgrow. So like I just said, we're working with the Robo CNC from good old Comgrow today, and I have hooked up the laser attachment. So if you own this unit, just kind of a little refresher for it. So you'll be hooking the PWM wire to the front of the actual laser, and then on the back side of it, you'll be hooking on the actual little sticker that says laser. So you'll see it on the board itself, but just kind of a little refresher. And then don't forget, on the back for the Arduino board, we are putting both of our switches in the down position. Make sure everything's nice and tight to the little CNC arm right here, and that way everything's nice and good. So working with the software that comes with the Robo CNC, so the Laser GRBL, which is GRBL is just the coding for anything that is the Arduino board. I've been doing a little bit more research into software. For the CNC side of things, there is some different software I've come across. I'll cover that kind of differently in a different video. Right now, working on the laser side of everything, the software supplied works really well. Other software that you can utilize is such as Cut2D and a couple other really good paid programs. You can also download the trial version, see if you actually enjoy it. Those are very intuitive programs as well. But as far as the free side and what you get with the laser, this is more than adequate and powerful to be able to do everything that you want to for the laser for the time being. Higher resolution can be gained from different software, so kind of keep that in mind. If some of the images you import and you work and play with and it translates into the G code for the unit, looks a little pixelated, that's due to the software and its resolution kind of restrictions. You can get better refining and better resolution, but most of the time you have to pay for it. Otherwise you can try and play around with some trial versions as well. On the laser side of things, I haven't really expanded, but the more I look around and find, I will also relay to you guys as well. So continuing on from there, I have vectored out a Celtic heart that I have been working on, and it took a while to clear that all up. I've been using Inkscape, which is a very wonderful vectoring program that can turn your files into what is called SVG files. And that's basically just a vectored image is what it is. Inkscape has the ability to export anything you put into it as that, and there is all sorts of different options for Inkscape as well. So I have done so in deleting a lot of that and turning it into just the vectoring lines from a picture I found on the internet, a free use image from what I could find, so that way there's no copyright infringement or anything else for the video's sake. Alright, when you are in your software or the Laser GRBL, once you have your image parameters set up, you like how the presets are on it, there's pretty much a click and drag into the main option here for the Laser GRBL. And then once it's in here, you have a few options you can kind of click through and see what it looks like. Hit the preview tab, and it'll give you the ability to kind of see what the image will look like once it's lasered. From there, it's kind of trial and error. You can up your main thing you're looking for is the power output of the laser. So I chose the 5.5 laser, and I'm finding that usually roughly around 80% or a little less gives me a pretty good image if I'm trying to actually go for something like what is called the pass-through, which is what finalized on that axe head there, as you saw in the last video, and I can show that here in a little bit as well. Otherwise, 80% for doing line art should be good. A nice bold line without being so bold that it actually causes burnout on the sides of where it's actually burning itself. So when the laser activates and starts burning the wood or material you are working with, it'll actually sometimes get too hot and it'll spread out. So just kind of using everything off a baseline, I'm just kind of playing with power output and then just letting the system generate its own version of G-code for the laser to follow those paths. So nothing super crazy, just running those. Now on the program, when you connect the CNC, In the top left hand corner you'll have GRBL. When you click that drop down, you'll have the option to connect. Now once your unit has been connected by USB to the laptop or computer, you'll have the options in the top left for COM. You just click the drop down, click the top one, it'll be whatever COM that is hooked up through for what USB port it's sensing a CNC is connected to. Once you hit connect, it'll give you options for the image to actually translate to something. Now hitting the lightning bolt will just basically give power to the unit. Unlocking it will give you the ability to move around. Find a position for your laser that you like the home position to be. You can then click the world map GPS locator, is what it looks like. When you click that, it just sets your home position. So once you have the laser moved around to where you want your home start bottom left hand corner to be, start that. Now what you can do is hit the frame button next, and that'll give you framing of where the laser is at. On the laser in the dead center you'll see an arrow, and that'll give you where the laser will be hitting on the board. So kind of giving you a bit of a step-by-step for what I've so far figured out. Still playing around, definitely still novice, but basic information to kind of get going with it. So if you hit the frame icon, it'll do as it says. It'll turn the laser on. Make sure to have your glasses that are supplied with you. It will outline where your item is. Now, kind of forgot this step a little bit. Your image, before it is brought to this screen, in the prior screen it'll give you a little pull-up of it. It'll show you your DPI, or dots per inch, and those are translated into millimeters. So you want to measure your material, and you want to get into that and translate that over if you're like me and using good old American Standard setup versus how everyone else is on metric. You're going to want to convert that over to millimeters. Now take that converted number and drop it into your width, and it'll automatically update your height on the image. So looking at the laser, you have width and you have height. So just make sure to update that width and then put in your image, and then just make sure to figure out on there that you are centered. Otherwise your laser will be hitting the edges and you'll be tripping your little limiter switches, or you'll end up running into your clamps, which you really don't want to do. Laser is a very nice, fine, and expensive instrument, as you know, purchasing it. So make sure to measure twice, if not 3 times. Make sure your conversion is exactly accurate and you didn't go by accident 360 millimeters when this unit isn't even that to begin with on the width here. So just make sure, double check your math. A lot of this is double checking math. Up, down, left, and right constantly. So once you have all that set and your image is brought up to here, then you can go amongst making sure that it is in the bottom left hand corner, and then you will hit the frame button. Now I'll show you here. It might kind of act a little odd on the camera, but we're going to try that out real quick. I'll hit the blink option just to show that the laser is on and working. You'll hear a whir from the machine. I got to turn it on real quick. Once it's plugged in, it'll show a light and you can move it around, but it isn't actually on, so you have to turn the unit on still. So I can do a blink option, or I can do a frame. This is going to run along a pathway that I have pre-designated off of my sizing. That should be exactly the size of the board. So it just went from this side right to the edge, and then it should stop right before that little bracket, and then return. And then it turns off. Alright, so all the parameters are set. Everything should be outlined. I did the path a couple times. You should start to see an ever so faint line if your laser's up a little too high. Otherwise I kind of turned mine down a little bit, so it's very, very faint. Once that's all good and everything is ready to go, up in the top left hand part of the screen here, you'll see a little green run program. It'll be a little play button right next to where it says progress 1, and you would click that, and then it should start running through its pathway. If you're curious about how long it should take, on the bottom middle of the screen just below the padlock, my estimated time is 36 minutes and 43 seconds to run this heart onto that board. We're going to do a test piece. I have a final piece that's a bit nicer wood. I'm going to try to play around with parameters on this test board and see how I like the heart. Then I'm going to also outline a few other items onto that board, and we're just going to laser engrave it, cut it down into a shape, and then go from there. And that should be pretty much the whole project in a nutshell. I'll turn on some time lapses so that way you can see the laser work, and we'll see how this test board runs. So sadly, it looks as though the middle of the board has a little bit stronger kind of veins going through it versus the left side there. So even though this did all the same process across the board, just the same amount of passes, you get inconsistencies based on the type of material you're working with. So with wood like this, it has a very strong kind of grain orientation. You can kind of see in this prior emblem here, using the pass-through like I was saying, it still ended up getting a lot of those veins. So this means that what I need to do is increase my pass count. It might get a little bit more on this top side up here, a little less over here. I'll give you a better angle there. So this is why we do a test piece instead of working with the final material 100%. So I'm going to actually increase my pass count. I believe this was on 6 or 7 passes for how many passes it goes through. So I show you here kind of on the program, you can see it generates lines. So each one of these is a pass going back and forth, and that is how many of those there are. So I might increase that amount, and I will also increase the intensity of my laser as well. I might, just with how this is going, might have to run it at 100%. I think this is at 80. So I don't know if I'll quite want to jump up to 100%. I might just upgrade this to maybe 90. So 10% more, and that'll bring this up by quite a bit. So I'm going to do a 10% jump. That might be a little too aggressive, but we'll see what kind of works. And I think I'll let that run right over the same piece of material, so I'm not going to rezone or anything. I'm just going to let it run its course. Alright, the other part I forgot to add in here is that with the laser going, pardon the kind of loudness on the side there, once you drag and drop the image into Laser GRBL, this is what you're greeted with. So this is the actual image parameters. So what I have done so far on here is you can kind of see what the original image looked like. It's a little different, and then versus with the program what it will look like. So everything is good on here. Now those are those 2 tabs right there. I have chose the resize to be smooth HQ by cubic. You can also do sharp. That gets a little bit more pixelated. This will kind of smooth it out. And on here, I can do simple average. I can also do optical correct, weight average, and this is literally just playing a little bit with the pixels and how they line up. I can choose the brightness and contrast. My white clip is right here. I chose to click the black and white option and increase slightly just because this is a black and white image, and of course the laser will only show as black and white, so that way you can also kind of get a little bit more of a rich dark texture to it. I'm doing a line to line, otherwise a couple of the other ones end up adding in a grain texture. Here's the pass through like I was talking about. Center line, and then right here I'm just going to leave it line to line horizontal. And the quality here I have at 7 lines. So I think I'm going to up that to, well actually I might drop it down and make it a little bit more blocky. Might fill in a little bit better. So when you hit next, you are greeted with this next screen which says target image. So on here, engraving speed be 1,000 millimeter a minute. And let's see, laser options here, M3 constant power, and I'm at 80. We'll jump that up to 90. Now automatically it auto sizes at 300 dpi, which is fine. Otherwise for the sizing I left it at 79 for my width, automatically corrected my height to 76 since this is wider rather than taller since it's a heart, and that just kind of gives me my size parameters, which is pretty much exactly to the board with just a little bit for error, like little room for error. So in our large, you can see those lines throughout the image, and that is what we have there. So on here, you can see this is set up at the bottom corner again, exactly as I had it. So I will just verify and make sure again that I hit this little graph image here and that everything's good. I can also tell it to frame right click That'll let me know that I'm where I need to be. I got my safety glasses on, of course. That should stop right at the bottom and go to the left. It'll end and drop down slightly. There it is. Alrighty. And if you need to, you can also hit the blink option. Test to make sure everything works good there. And so on and so forth. But everything I trust is good. The length and time on this being a little bit more powerful. As you can kind of see right here, it says 31 minutes, 33 seconds. I will go up here and hit the play button. That will run the program all the way through. And the only thing is that I'd make sure that the unit is running, as you can hear. And up here in this top corner, I would hit connect. Once it's connected, you can hit this again and it'll disconnect. Otherwise, you also have the option right here for disconnect. As well as you can open a new file if you hadn't dragged and dropped a file. That is how you would have gotten a file into here. Otherwise, you can also choose from file option. They give it to you on there twice. Alright, so now I will hit the run program and we'll try this again. Alright, so this looks good, although it's very interesting. It almost has a holographic kind of tendency, where how the fibers were burned in one direction, it looks very dark, but then in another direction, it looks kind of light. It's very interesting. But the heart portion of it is now done. Same kind of thing again. I'm not quite sure the wood type, but there is a little bit of like a color shift yet again. Remember, from one angle it looks kind of dull, and then it looks all like kind of rich and dark. But I'm really excited for how well this turned out. I'm going to do a little bit of edge sanding, and I think that'll be it. Well, that worked out rather well. So what I ended up having to do is turn the text sideways as well as the heart. You can do that in the same setup when you first get the image imported into the program. On the bottom of the actual little window that appears, there is a hand motion with a little bit of a rectangle shape and an arrow on it, so you can reorient what you're working with. And what you look at on the screen is though you're looking at the front of the machine up. So as you can see, this image is turned from normal upwards, and that is what I used on the actual little CNC. Close that down just to give you a little more focus on the actual finished product. So I went through and did a 120 sanding on the edges, and then I finished up with a 220 on the good old random little sander there, and that orbital is amazing. Still loving that product very much so. If you haven't already, take a look at that one. It's a fun little review I did. It's quite a bit lengthy, so if you want to pick and choose and kind of look through it, I won't be offended. But if you want a little bit more information on it, I do suggest it. It is a wonderful sander. Alright, so here is the finished product, all said and done. The sand kind of came to me. Not sure if it is from anything whatsoever, but I was looking at the heart and just kind of got inspired a little bit, trying to think of something. Good old Valentine's Day is around the corner, so I really enjoyed the Celtic heart, so I did a Celtic font through good old Inkscape, and then I exported that as an SVG file, and then I figured that SVG wasn't quite working too well, so I ended up doing it again as a PNG. So a PNG file worked great with the Laser GRBL, gave me a really good font to work with, as well as it gave me the ability to have this in its full glory, and it didn't actually pixelate at all, which is super nice. So I'm thinking furthermore, I'm going to start taking more images into Inkscape and kind of playing around with them a little bit more and see if I can actually kind of up the resolution. I ended up doing a final touch-up on this in the program Affinity, which is a wonderful kind of Photoshop substitute program. It works great. It only costs 40 bucks. You get 2 licenses that you can use on 2 different computers. I have it on my laptop as well as my desktop, and it works phenomenally well. Lifetime of updates for it, so good software if you are trying to figure out a alternative to Photoshop. Very similar, very much, if you look at everything, kind of play around with it a little bit, you'll get a feel for it right away. If you know anything about Photoshop, it works just the same, and it's a heck of a lot cheaper at $40 versus having to pay a monthly subscription or an annual subscription with no ability to just fully outright own the product. Versus Affinity, wonderful program, wonderful product. I love it and will suggest it every day. So let me know what you think down in the comments below. I really do enjoy the outcome and the look of this, and I'm really enjoying that laser. Again, if you have this product, if you're looking at getting it for woodworking and especially little like plaques and everything, it is phenomenal. Laser engravers are a lot easier than CNC. CNC, I'm noticing more and more, is going to be a lot more of an in-depth kind of dive with different software. I'll kind of dive into that in another future video, touching more on just the CNC side of things. Been able to get more successful kind of just paths and G-codes generated, and I've been able to run those G-codes through the system, but that's a different topic for another day. Thank you all so very much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, make sure and hit like down below. And if you are not yet, make sure and hit that good old subscribe button. It helps me out greatly, gives you the ability to keep a tab on me, knowing exactly what's going on the channel. If you want to get notifications of such, make sure and hit that notification bell. Helps you out greatly to know each and every time I upload good old content. I'm going to try to stick with weekly. Sometimes it might be a day late, or it might be a day early. So thank you all so very much for chiming in, and have yourself a wonderful evening. Thanks.